The movers were carrying Lily's bed out of the house when I pulled into the driveway. Her purple butterfly sheets still clung to the mattress like fragile wings. My mother-in-law stood on the porch, directing the men with sharp, confident gestures. Sunlight flashed against her pearl necklace as she pointed toward the truck. I stayed in my car for 3 silent heartbeats, then I understood. She had planned this for today, the one afternoon every week I spent at the cemetery. "Oh, good you are home," Margaret said, when I reached the steps, not bothering to hide her satisfaction. "We have made excellent progress. Jason's baby will need this room by Christmas. I thought it was best to start fresh." I stopped, still holding the small bouquet of daisies I had forgotten to place on Lily's grave. "Jason's baby is due December 15th, she announced, watching the movers struggle with Lily's bookshelf. "Finally a grandchild to carry on the family name. We are turning this into a proper nursery. None of that purple princess nonsense." The words landed like blows. Lily had chosen every detail of that room during her last good month, when the treatments eased just enough for her to imagine a future she would never have. "Where's my husband?" I asked. "Thomas is at work, someone has to pay for all this." She waved toward the chaos. "I told him I would handle everything. No need to bother you during your grief." I walked past her inside. The living room was buried in boxes marked donate and trash. Lily's drawings, the ones she made during chemo, were stacked carelessly by the door. "Please be careful with those," I said, pointing at the stack of drawings by the door. "They are just childish scribbles," Veronica, Margaret replied, without looking up from her clipboard. "We need to focus on the future, not cling to the past." I turned and really looked at her. She was wearing a new suit and expensive jewelry with a much larger diamond on her finger than I remembered. A strange suspicion began to take root in my mind. "When did Jason tell you about the baby?" I asked. "Last month," she smiled with a chilling brightness. "He and Jennifer have been trying for ages. They are not married yet, but that's just a formality. It is not like your situation with Thomas." "Our situation," I repeated, feeling the air leave my lungs. "You cannot expect him to live in a mausoleum forever," she said, stepping into the hallway. "A man needs living children, not shrines to the dead." Just then, my phone buzzed in my pocket. It was a text from Thomas saying he hoped the cemetery visit was healing and that he loved me. "He does not know about this, does he?" I asked quietly. Margaret scoffed and adjusted her pearls. "Men do not understand these things. They need us to make the hard decisions for them." She reached into a box and picked up Lily's stuffed elephant, the one with the frayed ears that had gone to every single chemotherapy session with us. "This can go to charity," she said, carelessly. I stepped forward and took it from her hands with a firm grip. "Lily slept with him every night," I said, my voice trembling. "Even in the hospital, even on the very last night." Margaret hesitated for a fraction of a second, but her face quickly hardened again. I looked at her cold eyes and decided to play a card I had been holding. "Did Jason mention anything about his medical history when he shared the news of this miracle baby?" I asked softly. Margaret frowned. "What medical history are you talking about?" she demanded. I took a deep breath. "The vasectomy he had 3 years ago," I said, "when he and his first wife decided they did not want children. Thomas went with him for the procedure, and they even turned it into a golf weekend." "That is ridiculous," she snapped, her face shifting color. "Jennifer had an ultrasound." "Oh, I am sure she is pregnant," I said, opening my phone. "It is just interesting timing. Jason divorces Melissa, immediately starts dating Jennifer, and suddenly there is a miracle baby despite his surgery." The confident smile on Margaret's face finally began to crack. Before she could recover her speech, I opened another screen on my phone. "You do know this house is in my name, right?" I asked her. Margaret stiffened her back and adjusted her posture to look more imposing. "The family home should stay in the family," she said, with a sharp edge to her voice. "It is in the family," I replied. "My family." I turned the phone screen toward her so she could see the digital property record. "My grandmother left this house to me. The deed never changed when I married Thomas. It was always mine." A mover appeared in the doorway, looking uncomfortable as he wiped sweat from his forehead. "Mom, what should we do with the toy chest?" he asked. "It is heavy and we were about to lift it." "Put everything back," I said, looking the man in the eye. "Exactly where it was." Margaret bristled and stepped toward me. "Now wait just a minute, Veronica. You cannot—" "No, you wait," I interrupted, stepping even closer. "Do you know what I was doing at the cemetery today?" I asked, my voice dropping to a whisper that filled the room. I was telling my 6-year-old daughter about her future cousins. I was telling her about how she would have loved teaching them about butterflies and rainbows. Margaret's face went pale as the reality of my words hit her. I was explaining to a headstone why Grandma Margaret never visits, why Uncle Jason stopped coming to the hospital when the going got tough, why you told me she looked unfortunate without her hair. I was only trying to help, she burst out, her voice rising in a defensive screech. This house is a tomb, and Thomas needs to move on. He is grieving his child, she added. But then her filter failed. She was not even his blood, Margaret snapped. The words dropped into the room like shattered glass, and even the movers froze in their tracks. What did you just say? I asked. She was not his blood, Margaret repeated, quieter this time, but with the same stubborn conviction. I nodded slowly as everything finally made sense. The smaller gifts for Lily. The way she was always pushed to the edge of family photos. The way you always introduced her as Thomas's stepdaughter instead of just his daughter. Biology matters, Margaret said defensively. Jason's baby will carry the family blood. You know what else matters, I said, holding up my phone again. I opened the security app. We installed cameras in every room after Lily got sick. She was scared someone would come in while she was too weak to run. Margaret finally noticed the small black lenses in the corners of the room. Everything is recorded, I said calmly, including this conversation, including your plan to do this while I was at the cemetery. I turned to the movers and gave a clear instruction. Please put everything back. I have photos of the room if you need them to get the placement right. Then I looked back at Margaret, whose face was now a mask of indignation. Mrs. Harrington will be leaving now, I said. Margaret stood her ground with a defiant look. I am not going anywhere until Thomas gets home, she declared. Thomas is about to receive a very interesting phone call, I replied, already dialing his number and attaching the security footage to a message. Let us see what he thinks about his mother tearing apart his daughter's room. Yes, Margaret, I said, as the phone began to ring. His daughter. Blood does not change that. The line clicked open and my husband's voice came through. Hey, honey, he said. How was the cemetery? Eventful, I replied, keeping my eyes locked on Margaret. Your mother is here. She has some interesting ideas about Jason and a nursery. There was a sharp pause on the other end. What, he asked. Mom is at the house? A nursery? I am sending you the footage now, I said. You might want to sit down. Margaret's face flickered with a mixture of anger, embarrassment, and finally something close to fear. Veronica. What is going on? Thomas asked sharply as he watched the video in real time. Your mother decided to empty Lily's room for Jason's baby while I was at the cemetery, I explained. There was a long, heavy silence. Then Thomas spoke very quietly. She did what? I am handling it, I told him. No, you may want to come home. And maybe call Jason on the way. Ask him about that vasectomy reversal he must have had. Another pause followed. I am leaving now, Thomas said, his voice cold and hard. Mom, if you are listening, do not move. Do not touch anything. Do not speak. I put the phone on speakers so she could hear him clearly. Thomas the First was only trying to help. Margaret began, her voice trembling. I said, do not speak, he shouted. My daughter has been dead for 4 months. 4 months and you are tearing apart her room? His voice broke and I could hear him fighting for breath. That is my little girl's room. That is where I read her stories. That is where she told me she loved me for the last time. 20 minutes, he said. I will be there in 20 minutes. The call ended and Margaret stood frozen, her composure finally gone. He didn't mean that, she whispered, but I looked at her with no pity. Yes, I said quietly, he did. I sank onto the couch, suddenly feeling drained of all energy. You know what the worst part is, I whispered to her. Lily loved you even when you made it clear she didn't really belong. She loved you. She even made you a birthday card. It is probably in one of those boxes you labeled as trash. Margaret glanced at the boxes stacked by the door. Purple paper, I added. She put glitter everywhere. She was so weak during those last weeks, but she insisted on making it special for you. Without a word, Margaret went to the boxes and began searching, her hands shaking as she moved the cardboard flaps. She found it in the 3rd box. The purple card trembled in her hands as she opened it. To Grandma Margaret, she read aloud. Thank you for being in our family. Love, Lily. She made you family, I said softly, even when you never made her part of yours. Behind us, the movers quietly finished putting the last piece of furniture back into its place. Just then tires screeched in the driveway, and Thomas rushed into the house still wearing his work clothes. His face was tight with a fury I had never seen before. "Mom," he said quietly, "get out." "Thomas, if you would just listen," she started. "I am done listening," he said. "I am done with the comments. I am done with you pretending Lily was not real family, and I am done with your obsession with biological grandchildren." He walked to Lily's doorway and touched the frame with a gentle hand. She was my daughter in every way that mattered. Margaret opened her mouth to argue, but he cut her off. "No, there is no but. She called me Daddy. She ran to me when she had nightmares. I held her hand through every treatment, and I was there when she took her last breath. Don't you ever tell me she was not my real daughter." Margaret clutched the purple card to her chest and whispered that she just wanted him to have a future. "My future died 4 months ago," Thomas said brokenly. "Or at least part of it did." He straightened his shoulders and looked at her with steel in his eyes. "Jason's baby can have a room in Jason's house paid for with Jason's money." He opened the front door wide. "Leave now. You do not mean that," Margaret said. "Try me," he replied. "Veronica is my wife, and this is her house. Lily was our daughter. You disrespected all 3 today." Margaret looked between us, finally understanding the depth of what she had destroyed. She walked toward the door, but I stopped her one last time. "The card stays," I said. She handed the purple glittered paper to Thomas. He took it carefully like it was made of thin glass. Then she left, and the house fell into a heavy silence. Thomas walked slowly into Lily's room and looked at the space we had just restored. "I am sorry," he whispered. "I should have known she might do something like this." "You could not have known," I told him. He picked up Lily's stuffed elephant from the bed. "I just never thought she could be this cruel," he said. "What about Jason's baby?" I asked gently. Thomas gave a short, bitter laugh. "There is no reversal. I golf with Jason every month, and he is terrified of being a father. He always has been. If Jennifer is pregnant, it is not his." I closed my eyes, realizing that Christmas was going to be very difficult for his mother. "We will not be there," he added, as if reading my thoughts. He pulled me into his arms, and we spent the rest of the evening putting the room back exactly the way it had been. Every stuffed animal, every drawing, and every book went back to its rightful spot. Thomas found the butterfly mobile she made in art therapy and hung it back by the window. As the sun sank, it washed the room in a soft purple light. We sat on Lily's bed together. "She would have been an amazing big cousin," he said. "The best," I whispered. "She would have taught them about butterflies and rainbows, and how to make the perfect glitter card, even for grandmothers who did not deserve one." My phone buzzed with a message from Jennifer asking to talk about the baby. But I showed it to Thomas, and he sighed, looking older than his years. "Tomorrow," he said. "We will deal with that tomorrow." Tonight we stayed in our daughter's room inside the purple walls and butterfly dreams. Margaret was gone, but the room remained. It was not a shrine, but a promise. A place kept for a daughter who was real in every way that mattered.